Hey guys, it's Russ, and today I wanted to take a look at this pedal board and go through some of the changes I've made. Obviously, I like pedals a lot, and this board is really handy when I'm playing at home or playing at church. I also use it if there's something more psychedelic or ambient. But the first thing I want to take a look at is this more simple board that I tend to use playing around town if it's, American music or more simple, or if the stage is small. Really, you have everything you need here as well. But starting out, there is a Polytune, a pretty straightforward tuner. Then we have a Keeley compressor, which is one of the favorite pedals that I've ever had. I love compression, especially for single coil pickups. I really like to turn it up on something like a Telecaster and get a lot of attack, and I think the Keeley compressor is the best one out there. Next, I have, I think, the first generation version of the Fulltone OCD, which is just a good kind of British heavy overdrive, but I like it because it can clean up and have a lot of transparency as well, so I think it's pretty versatile. A lot of the time I'll use that to push a little harder as a boost into a TS9. So this is just a standard tube screamer. I've been playing tube screamers since I was about 14 years old, and they're always good. They're cheap. They're easy to find, and I think it's a perfect overdrive pedal. So TS9s are some of my favorite pedals. Then here we have a carbon copy, and I've been using carbon copies a lot for a couple of years, and I've played a ton of delay pedals, and I think that these, for that D bucket kind of drawn out ambient type of sound, or if you really want that analog sound, I like the carbon copy as much as anything I've ever played. Even pedals that are 3 times that cost, I think they're fantastic. Last one on here is a nano copy of the Electro Harmonix Holy Grail. Pretty straightforward reverb, and I like to just have the ability to jump over to that. So over here on the larger board, there's a lot more going on. Where the guitar goes in, first off, is going to be a Philosopher's Tone compressor. And this is a Pigtronics pedal that I got recently, and I've been pretty happy with. I've been playing maybe for close to a year. I chose to get this because you have a little bit more variety than the Keeley one, and wanted to try it out, and I've been very happy with it. Over here, you have the sustain that would come with any compressor. What I really wanted was this blend knob. So a lot of the time if I'm using humbuckers where I don't really want as much compression, I like to just blend it almost all the way out, but it still keeps the volume more consistent as I jump between pedals. You also have a grit knob, which gives you distortion that you can put into that compressed signal, and an overall treble and volume boost. So it's just good as the first pedal to kind of set the baseline of what the sound is going to be like. From there, we run up here to a nose single bypass looper. So these pedals are made by a guy over in Nashville, and I've got a couple of them on this board, and I've been happy with them so far. It's a pretty simple pedal. It just does bypass loop as a nice bright light. And on this loop, we run these 2 pedals right now. So it's a standard issue Crybaby, and usually I don't worry that much about tone suckage or true bypass, all that kind of thing, but I do feel like the Crybaby pulls a little something out of the tone when it's not engaged. So we have that on this loop, and then a Fulltone Deja Vibe 2. And I like this pedal because it's a univibe type of pedal. It's my favorite modulation effect, but the special thing is it's off in the up position or in the heel position. As you go down, the intensity goes up, or the speed rather, and so it's easy to control there, and it's running through this loop, so I can kind of set those pedals as an expression somewhere in the middle and kick the sound on from there. From this little looper, we run over to a slightly larger one, the MXR dual loop box, and this runs 2 separate loops. So really there's 3 total effects loops. So even though the board is pretty large, it's not always running all of these pedals. From the loop box, we're going to first run over on the distortion channel to a Zvex Fuzz Factory, and a lot of people say that these aren't very useful pedals, that you can never find a way to use them live, but I think they're pretty handy and make really cool sounds. More so than that just insane type of distortion. Typically have the drive down and the gate and comp up quite a bit, and go for more of that kind of 8-bit Nintendo sounding type of just an effect almost. It makes me think a lot of sounds that you hear in Flaming Lips records. I don't know if they use a Fuzz Factory or what, but it kind of has that type of characteristic. From the Fuzz Factory, we're going to another Zvex pedal, and this is a Distortron, which is pretty similar to the Fulltone OCD. It's got that kind of British heavy distortion sound. What I like here is that you have this sub control, which gives you a little bit of a variety if you're playing different amps. It's kind of like a low boost, so a regular size amp, I usually keep it on 2, maybe flip it to 3 if I'm playing something smaller like a Blues Junior. My standard amp is a Bad Cat Wildcat, and then I have a larger divided by, so sometimes I flip that over to 3 if I'm really, or to 1 if it's already got a lot of power in the cab. So it gives you a little more flexibility. From there, we go up to the Keeley Fuzz Head, and I'm a big fan of Robert Keeley pedals. He does a lot of cool stuff and a lot of good mods. And this one, I like to have it on the board because this is a fuzz pedal, and it has kind of that fuzz characteristic, and you have a toggle switch here that gives you the choice between silicon and germanium. So you've got a couple of different transistors to get those different types of flavors, but it's a pretty smooth one. It's not a crazy fuzz. It's almost just a distortion with that sound that tapers off the end. So I find a lot of kind of practical ways to use this, and this one's more the impractical type of fuzz if you're trying to get that just crazy distortion. From the fuzz head, we go over to a Keeley modded Sparkle Drive, and you could read into it to find out, but I think the difference in the Keeley modded one is that instead of sounding like a TS9 tube screamer, it's more like an 808, so it's got a little more drive to it. The reason I started using this is because you have the extra option from a tube screamer of blending the clean signal, so it just gives you a little bit more clarity if that's what you're looking for. It depends on the amp you're playing and all that. So I've been very happy with this pedal. I think it has great tone, and I don't really need all the gain that it provides. It's a little more gain than a tube screamer, which is good if it's the only pedal on your board. Usually what I'll do is start stacking things if that's what I want to do as far as gain levels, but that's a good pedal. Going back into the looper, we then jump over to the A channel, which is more of modulation I use usually to be creating space, that whole ambient type of sound. So the first thing we run into over here is a Pog 2, and I think a lot of people are familiar with this pedal. Does a lot of different things. It's an octave pedal that can go 2 octaves below or 2 octaves above, but it also has controls for a gradual attack. You can run it through a detune type of modulation, low pass filter. So I don't use 8 presets in it, but there's about 2 or 3 that I really like to use. You can do that Jack White type of multi-octave version of the Pog, or you can do something that's more focused on swelling, which I use a bit more than in another way, like I just described. From the Pog, we run up to the Strymon Timeline, and this is a very powerful delay pedal. It's got about 1,000 options, a lot of cool features on it, and overall I think it's a great pedal, but it can be a little difficult to use live because it's tough, especially the way I have it set up on this board, to really toggle through things. You have to hit 2 switches at once to bank, and there's only two presets per bank. So what I started using was another nose pedal, which runs from the expression up there down here. And this is just a very small, you can see kind of next to the other pedals how small it is, a small expression pedal that I use to kind of control the level out of this pedal. So I most commonly use a swell setting where if you're playing kind of a riff or something, it's not going to really have any attack on it. You don't hear the delay, but as soon as you hold a note out, it's going to start swelling in pretty crazy with the delays. And I like this because I can control the volume of the delays or the persistence here. It depends on which setting you kind of program to it. Or similar, there's an ice setting on these things. It's pretty cool, but sometimes you want to use it in more moderation. So I definitely would approve of these nose expression pedals, and they're cheap. I think this was $30, something along those lines. Really makes this pedal more useful. From there, we go over to a Fulltone Super Trim. I love this pedal. It's just a tremolo, but it's easy to use on the fly, and it has a great sound to it, just a very natural sounding tone. I also like that you can't really dial it in exactly. There's a new Super Trim where it has a tap tempo, but what I like here is you've got a lot of controls on the fly, but it's still going to be off tempo. It gives you keeps you from getting too rhythmic with delays and tremolos and a lot of that stuff think people can be a little guilty of dialing it in and being too rhythmic. So I like to keep that natural. I also stay away from ever tapping tones into this. But to directly contradict myself, I have a DD20 with the tap tempo on here. And this pedal is really for if I'm just looking for something subtle, or if I use it for the reverse effect. And on those occasions that you want those dotted 16ths, this is an easy one to program in. So I'd gotten away from using it for a long time, and I'd been focused on, there was a Memory Man there for a long time, and for a little while I had 2 carbon copies. You know, I kind of switch around these delays or get away from using as much delay. But this one's back on the board because the truth is it is a really handy, easy to use pedal, and it doesn't hurt to have that available. After that, we have a carbon copy just like the other board. So I use this, just more of an ambient type of sound. I leave a lot of space on it. Again, it's not rhythmic. You can't tap it in, so that's a good thing. And as you could probably guess, I like to layer these delays or set them to different timings and, kind of wash everything out a little bit. Now I'm going to go another route because actually I lied. After the DD20, we were actually going to this Phase 45, which is much like a Phase 90. It's just less extreme, and this was a reissue, so it's to spec the same way that the 70s Phase 45 is. There's no way to plug in a 9 volts. You have to kind of rig a battery connector through the bottom, and there's no LED on it. But I like to have that at the other end of the chain from the Deja Vibe. They're very similar pedals, but I've got them on different sides of the distortion, so they have a pretty different effect when you use it in practice. So really the DD20 went to that, then down to the carbon copy, and then the carbon copy goes over to the Strymon Blue Sky, so another Strymon pedal, and this might be my favorite pedal on the board. I think it's just a great reverb, a lot of variety, creates a lot of space, and you have a modulation effect on there, as well as a shimmer, which is kind of an octave up overtone that occurs. It can be really handy, and you're able to use the preset of whatever is up here, and then you can save one favorite. So it's easy to recall that favorite setting that you might have on the fly. Then we run back into the dual loop, then over to this Boss tuner. I've used a lot of different tuners, and I've come back to this one because it just works. It's sturdy, it's small, and I think that for the way that I play, and especially if you play church stuff, it's nice to have something that's buffered and engaged. It's going to kill the signal over on this side, so that when you finish the song and you're trying to be quiet, you don't have a great big pop occur in the line, or you don't have these leftover distortions running, just kind of hissing. So I like to use this over here and just really go pretty much dead silent when I click it on. It's not that hard to dodge all the effects because everything is in one of these effects loops except for the compressor, which you can tune right through pretty easily. Then the very last thing here is the full tone fat boost, which I think is just a great clean boost. I've used a lot of different clean boosts, and I keep coming back to this one. It's small, it's affordable, but it does a really good job of just pushing a clean, dry signal. You can put some drive on it if you want, but usually I just use that to control the overall volume if I'm kind of playing at a lower level, or it's so pure if you're playing through a good amp and you can put some volume in. A lot of the time I'm just running this thing and the compressor, and that's pretty much the whole drive. From there I might click in a delay, but I don't always use all these pedals, but it's fun to have a lot of options and to kind of mix and match these effects. So I know this is a long video, so hopefully if you sat through it, you found it enjoyable, and let me know if you have any comments or any questions, things like that. Thanks, guys.